Hello friends, today I'm making this video to clarify an issue that has recently come to my attention during supervisions, which has made it difficult for the young colleagues to understand. But at the same time, I believe this video will be beneficial for individuals who are not mental health professionals, but are interested in helping themselves by reading books, watching videos, and using apps. Understanding the subject of this video is important, and I think knowing what the triggering incident is will be helpful for them as well. Therefore, the target audience for this video is quite broad. Watch and judge for yourself. Now, what's the incident? Why is it important? Because our clients come to us due to incidents. They react to external incidents and complain about them. They may complain about the incident itself, but in reality, it is the distress caused by the incident that brings them to us. However, if you're working on yourself, this information can also be helpful. When we're hurt by incidents, we want to change and address things, so it's crucial to understand what's happening. We have an app called Happy Mind, an AI robot, and I'll provide the link below the video. In the app, when the therapy robot asks what you'd like to work on, we understand from users' statements that they don't recognize what is being asked as an incident. This also happens in sessions. People often provide snippets of information about the incident rather than understanding the incident itself. For both experts and consumers, it's important to find the vulnerable part because we notice incidents as they hurt us. We experience many incidents daily, but if we deal with an incident quickly and it has no lasting impact, we don't feel the need to talk about it to a friend or therapist. But unfinished business has a mechanism. On the screen, we have a model depicting behaviors related to an incident and our reactions to it. In the section labeled Triggering Stimulus, we discuss triggers. A trigger goes through a testing phase and then an operation before the result is shown on the screen. This graph will help you understand incidents, providing a clear summary. You didn't see an image on the screen earlier, and I did that on purpose. For example, the screen going dark while I talk about the slide and no slide appearing is a triggering situation. Now, let's see what happens when you're triggered. If we apply the TOTE model, introduced by George Miller and his colleagues in 1960, we see that a trigger occurs when our current situation significantly deviates from what we believe it should be. In this case, the recent state was the absence of the slide, which should have been there as the speaker was referring to it. This creates a trigger. Our nervous system detects it and creates a disturbance due to the discrepancy between the current and the desired situation. So we might think there could be a problem here and I should do something about it. You might check your internet connection. If there's sound but no visual, then we call it an operation. That is, we exhibit a behavior. Then the result of the operation is tested again. In other words, did the current state and the desired state come closer to each other? Okay, it seems it's not a personal issue. Understood. However, there is still a problem. The problem persists. There is a difference between the current situation and the desired situation. This time, it's not about me, it's about the other party. We make another comment here. We reconsider and evaluate the situation. What kind of sloppiness is this? How come they haven't been posting videos for so long and now that they have, there's still a major flaw? We might have another comment on such a problem. The operation for this could be writing a negative article. We write a negative article and then when we test it again, okay, they gave me such a hard time and I expressed my reaction. My reaction was appropriate to the distress I was experiencing and my issue no longer persists. I mean, I've reacted and I'm not going to do anything else. I'll change the channel, I'll watch something else, or I'll do something else. So, in a way, I find an exit. This is roughly the end of the story for me. Something happened that bothered me, and I reacted. I show up, justice is done, and I forget about it. I don't feel the need to tell anyone. If we happen to meet somewhere, you might recall, oh, your video was like this and that, but other than that, you move on and forget it. So when we look at the mechanisms here, the difference between the current situation and the operational situation, and how we perceive it, and what behavior to do about it. We decide what behavior to exhibit, control, and test the situation, then test the result of our behavior. If the current state closely matches the desired state, or is the same, we forget about the incident. Once we reach a state of balance and stability, it's over for us. It's kind of a way out. And we don't go and tell anyone about it. We forget about it. And during the day, as I said, we go through hundreds of incidents, maybe more, and we don't even think about it again. When the doorbell rings, you say, I have to open the door because I'm home. Even if you pass all the stages in this TOTE model, completed tasks stay on the sidelines, and when you repeatedly return to a stable state, it's done for you. In the case of mental health, we are talking about models from which we cannot exit. When things linger in our minds without resolution, they become sources of distress. Revisiting what an incident is, it's a situation perceived by the nervous system that creates a sense of need and prompts a response. These are momentary incidents. When we talk about an incident, we convey a paragraph of information. The incident is just a hurtful and triggering moment within a broader situation, which is followed by coping. Let us take an example here. I chose one of the topics studied in Happy Mind. I changed it a little bit and put it here. We said, how can we help you? Let's say my friend was upset and I couldn't reach out to them, so I got angry and wrote that I wouldn't talk to them. Let's say your friend told you about this, that's the situation, or your patient shared this with you. From the occurrence of the incident to our response, we go through various states. It's like the gears of a car. Different gears, forward, backward, third gear, first gear, fifth gear, like first gear, which we use to get up or to get going. Although manual cars have become less common, one of them is crucial for us, especially for change. Of course, others are important too, but that hurtful point is where the significance lies. Here, being hurt is not just getting angry or writing that I won't talk to them. Of course, you can get outraged about a lot of things if you're cutting off friendships each time, punishing people, holding grudges in your mind, and distancing yourself, the not talking when angry part, might be the issue. But what's more crucial for us is the feeling of being hurt. Now we talked about the TOTE model. Today I will talk about both the details of working with the incidents and the recent model we are working on, an advancement of the TOTE model, following a layered schema model. It's called the layered model. Above, I just explained the TOTE model. The acronym stands for Test, Operate, Test, Exit. The bottom one is our layered model. Here the layered model is essentially a folded version of the TOTE model, folded one more round of the model. Here, the layered model, you can think of it as unfolded. The test part means control, in the sense of checking the situation. In the operation part, we categorize it as primary operation, primary response, and secondary response. The exit part is the same as before. In the stimulus part, understanding the stimulus is the focus. So stimulus is not enough. There are many stimuli out there, but we cannot understand them. For example, let's say there is a lot of radiation in the environment. We don't have a receptor to detect radiation. We can only understand it later. Therefore, we are concerned with incidents that are relevant to our perceptual system here. We deal with whatever situations we perceive externally. What are the situations we perceive externally? We will talk about these in a moment. We have left the TOTE model and now continuing with our layered model. The situations we refer to as primary control and primary response are always impulsive, meaning they contain no thoughts. This is our primitive brain, found in more primitive organisms and also in more advanced mammals, where there are no processes for evaluating the situation, reflecting on it, and planning, only primitive responses such as fight, flight, freeze to escape the pain. The second part involves evaluating this primary response, aiming at a goal. If the primary response is not sufficient, it includes brake systems related to how we can learn, change, and develop it. Our brain has a central part called the orbitofrontal cortex, which allows us to give adult responses controlled in communication with other centers and motivated by instinctive desires. Unfortunately, as I said before, our mental complaints, the need to tell someone and work on mental complaints that arise because these two systems cannot lead us to the exit or meet our needs. If we go back to the previous incident, when my friend was upset, I couldn't reach them and I got angry. I wrote that I wouldn't talk to them. Let's look at the information we have. The trigger here is not being able to reach. We called our friend, but we couldn't reach him. Something happened here. I got angry. Anger is always the primary response. It is not being hurt. While some books may categorize anger as hurt, basic psychology 101 knowledge tells us that anger is always a reactive emotion that emerges to cope with an event. This is not a reflexive response. It is a secondary emotion. It's there, and I wrote that I wouldn't talk to them. It is not a reflexive reaction, a more advanced reaction after thinking about what to do. After going through the second control, we decide to write that I won't talk to them. If we continue, let's look at the first event, which is being hurt. The feeling of being hurt is a message that signals a problem causing discomfort for us. Let me correct my sentence. Events are the situations that create emotions. An emotion is actually a gift for us. It makes us realize that there is a problem that needs to be automatically resolved. To cope with that intense emotion, I engage in various behaviors. After that, coping begins. Therefore, realizing that the phone is not answered instantly triggers a feeling of being hurt. When you decide that the phone won't be answered, the first emotion you experience is the feeling of being hurt. And that emotion, as you see on the screen, can be categorized into basic and simple categories such as disappointment, sadness, anxiety, and distress. When we experience failure, it's disappointment. When we feel unloved or excluded, it's simply sadness. When we experience distrust or helplessness, it's anxiety. Or when our comfort is disrupted, as you felt when looking at the black screen a while ago, it's distress. We experience discomfort, not the kind of helplessness where we'll get sick, injured, or die in a few moments. It's the helplessness of not being able to restore comfort. I am sitting in front of the video, thinking it might be an interesting piece of information, and the discomfort I experienced at that moment is different from anxiety. And you see our diagrams about this hurt on the right side. This is likely to be new information, especially for experts. Now we can talk about the schemes, 18 schemes. If you have seen our videos, we talk about them there too. We don't categorize these schemas in the same category anymore. Some of them are about hurt, some of them are about control, and some response. We will talk about these a little later. As I said, this may seem a bit different to those familiar with the schema model. We believe that punitive, mistrust, and pessimistic schemas play a role in the primary control. In other words, concerning hurt, testing the notions of justification and injustice, or whether there is a solution or not, is a situation we control and test. As I said, it happens at the speed of light. It happens very fast. It's reflexive. Some of us are quick to see ourselves as unjust because of our punitiveness schema. Some of us are quick to dismiss the opposing side as unjust through a mistrust schema and react very quickly accordingly. Now, if we continue with this example, if our punitiveness and pessimism schemas are activated, there's hurt, there's distress, and you say to yourself, for instance, that you deserved it. Let's say your friend is in a bad mood, and you think you've upset him. And when he doesn't answer you, the reaction you experience is a freeze, a surrender. Because you believe you deserve it, is actually a control schema that you decide on very quickly, often without realizing it. So, in other words, I'm unjust or I'm helpless. There's no solution. That's pessimism. All of these stages have positive evolutionary purposes. We encounter them in their degraded form. When the mistrust schema is activated, it leads us to anger because we feel we don't deserve it. We think, I don't deserve this. I need to do something about it. Depending on the situation, We might say they will pay for this, hang up the phone, rush home, knock on their door, and when they react, saying, "How can you treat me like this?" It's also reflexive. We refer to behaviors done without thinking about the consequences, reacting with the emotion of the moment, even before it occurs to use. Intense behaviors driven by anger or impulses. Impulsivity is a topic we'll cover in future videos, constitute our response. We quickly respond with justified anger. We react righteously, angrily, quickly. Either it turns into anger, or as I said, it can also turn into impulse. But that's a separate issue. So when I think the other side is wrong, anger is an emotion that arises to deal with this injustice. The concept of injustice is what allows us to cope with the situation, especially in situations of injustice, and we react accordingly. If we are lucky, our secondary control mechanisms, our braking systems are working, and we can respond differently. So I took these from the pictures of the judges. In the primary control, as I mentioned, there is a judge, a reflex with two decisions. Either they are right or you are right. If they are right, you surrender. If you are right, you may react with an angry response like attacking them. So there are two options, you or him. However, since life is not that simple, and we have known for thousands and thousands of years that for survival, we need to live together with other people, just like other organisms and animals before we developed these. So if you need social communication, social needs to survive, some structures emerge to protect them, to ensure them. On the screen, we again see degraded versions of these. The higher standards are responsible for values or self-sacrifice schemas responsible for empathy. It comes into play. For example, when high standards are at play, I may choose not to express the instinctive reaction inside me, but I also don't want to be submissive to the injustice done. What should I do? Let me give a socially acceptable response, conveying that I'm angry, but without severing the relationship with them, or at least not having others who hear this story sever their relationships with me, because I need socializing. Okay, if you write a phrase in a more concise way, it might be even more impactful. You might react like, "I won't bother you again." Or, if you do a secondary control at the level of sacrificial schema, emphasizing empathy, you might completely suppress anger, sacrificing more of yourself to cope with the hurt. You cancel your jobs, you cancel all. You arrange your affairs according to your friends, you work for them. However, there might be a significant rupture here if you go with a reaction that emphasizes empathy to the extent of self-sacrifice. They are details, but at this stage we will go through a slightly more developed system of judgment. It's not like a simplistic judgment system of, are you right or is he right? I mean, a more educated system where a judicial system in which the prosecutor and the judge are involved, a healthier version of these structures. When it breaks down, we see that these areas manifest as high standards and self-sacrifice schemas. We see that they show themselves in the form of these structures. In reality, what should happen is a more wise mechanism, this secondary control. We bring values with us that we've learned to be ourselves in life, and we have the ability to empathize. By using both together, we can have a balanced response. I mean, what can we do? A response that involves empathy and harmony. I got worried when you didn't respond. You not responding affected me. But along with this, if there is a need, I am always here. On the screen, you see how we distribute the schemas when developing the layered model. On the far left side, schemas are responsible for detecting the needs, and then comes the primary control schemas. After this quick control phase, primary response schemas get activated. We currently don't have a schema for the freezing reaction on our model yet. However, we are considering developing items for the questionnaire we use to detect them. In the secondary control phase, our high standards and self-sacrifice schemas readjust our primary responses, considering our values and harmony. Then, secondary responses that are expected to be more harmonious replace our primary responses. Currently, in our model, the schemas of emotional inhibition, enmeshment, and status seeking are associated with our responses at this level. This model is completely compatible with the mode model. The vulnerable child mode is synonymous with schemas that perceive deficiencies in needs. The punitive parent mode is compatible with the punitiveness schema from the primary control phase schemas. I refer to this mode as the child-parent mode. In the absence of real parents, it helps the child survive by itself with a simple justice system. However, naturally, its operation in the same way in adulthood creates problems. The angry child, impulsive child, detached protector, and compliant surrenderer modes overlap with the concept of primary responses. The demanding or critical parent modes are secondary control mechanisms. The part about secondary responses also includes our remaining modes like detached self-soother, grandiose, bully, rebel, attention-seeking, trickster, detail-oriented controller, and others. The benefit of this new layered model is that we don't need to work separately on schema and mode concepts. It combines them all. So actually, primary schemas help us understand the deprivation in our needs. The concepts in the mode model that schemas cannot explain are actually coping behaviors inherent in the basic schema model. I think we can explain all behavior with a single model. I'll see if there are any more slides left. No. Good. Now we've come to the end of the video. In other words, when our patient tells a complaint, they provide information related to almost all layers. We need to figure out if we realize we can gradually find the point of vulnerability. We can achieve more lasting results if we work with vulnerabilities rather than coping mechanisms. In future sessions or when working on yourself or using our artificial intelligence engine, Happy Mind, if you encounter schemas responsible for control or operation, such as the schema of entitlement, mistrust, or high standards, try to backtrack. High standards, for example, what would happen if they were not met? Or mistrust, or punitiveness. Mistrust or punitiveness is never the primary complaint on its own. Mistrust always has a relevant area it is concerned with, an area of need, like being loved, respected, feeling safe or comfortable. Some people are skeptical about not being loved, while others are skeptical about not being recognized. In other words, about the areas where we are injured. These are reflexive structures that emerge when we need to make quick decisions. Mistrust, like punitiveness, is a non-primary structure that guides how we should make decisions about the situation. It is about control, not about hurt. Therefore, I believe this model will be more useful when analyzing an event. As an expert and user, I hope you may benefit from these techniques and find this information valuable. See you in the next videos.